Hello everyone, Flippy again. I'm currently halfway through looking for jobs in Japan. My jet time will finish this year, and in preparing for the career fairs, I looked around for blog posts and YouTube videos, but I couldn't really find what I was looking for, and so I decided that I might as well share my experience and specifically my preparation. What I found was very good to do leading up to the fair. I think maybe some people in the future could use that, or maybe even someone going to Fukuoka still, because that's still about 3 weeks away from now. So, in this video, I'm going to cover the preparation we did leading up to the fairs, the day you get there, the fair itself, because that's only one section of the schedule, what happens afterwards, a little bit about interviews, although that's not really what this is about. Some frequently asked questions that I either asked myself or heard other people discussing, and then just some example questions that we have gotten in the last while doing all of these things. This is truly going to be a comprehensive guide, so I apologize. It's going to be a little bit long, but I will put in the timestamps for each section so you can maybe try and find what you're looking for instead. So, steps number one, the preparation. You have to apply for the career fairs, so there's a limited amount of time, space available, but actually in Osaka and in Tokyo this year, 2020, I found that there was probably a bit of extra space, that the venue wasn't completely filled up. But you still have to apply because they also create a little name badge for you and so forth. And it's the same team of roughly the same team of people who go to each career fair. So as I go to them, I see the same guy working at the next career fair as well. And they really kind of want you to wear the name tag. So better register. Get your logistics sorted out. You have to apply online and then get a response that you're allowed to go. As I said, I don't think these are very full actually. There's normally a little bit of space left, so you shouldn't have a problem being allowed to go. So make sure that you can fly or bus or train where you need to be, and you can sleep somewhere the night before or after or similar. And then this is a separate topic, but I highly recommend getting a LinkedIn profile set up and fleshing it out as much as you can. Your education, your work experiences. Ask maybe some of your previous colleagues or someone to write you one or two recommendations. Add in a few skills. Just flesh it out. Recruiters and companies who are looking for people frequently use LinkedIn anyway. And it also comes up in some of the conversations that we had for the Afterjet Fair conference, the day before the Tokyo Fair, and there was a guy who was also touting LinkedIn. But I do think it's quite useful, and you will also eventually be able to use this to look at other people's profiles that you can only see if you have your own account, and then it's probably best that you have an account that's filled out and not just half empty, because they will see that you looked at them. All right, and then for the career fairs, you're going to prepare a document set, like a little packet that you can give to every booth that you want to go to. This will include a business card, very simple, your name, maybe some katakana version of it, your contact details, where you're working currently. Most prefectural and municipal boards of education have a set format for their cards. So I'm in Omura City, and there is a Omura City Board of Education Meishi format. So I have that format for ALT, just my details on there. Get that. It's very useful to exchange cards with people during the fair and in other cases, because it's the easiest way to make sure that you don't have to remember all their names, and you can look it up again afterwards when you have to either email them or talk to them or prepare for an interview. You can check, was it Tanaka-san or Nakamura-san, or whoever it was that you were talking to. The next one is the JET form. So this is a very basic information form that the career fair asks you to fill out on the day when you get there. There's also some extra copies that you can fill out in pen, but you're going to prepare properly and you're going to do this beforehand. It's very simple. It's your basic information, and at the bottom there's a small box where you can write down like a little PR spiel about yourself. There's also one box for location, preferred location of work, and there's three options kind of set out, but you can change the format if you need to. And there's also a box for preferred job. So there's three little dots you can fill in. Outside of filling in the general form, maybe this location and a specific job is the only part that you really need to tweak per company. And so for that reason, you're going to research companies later on, and for the ones that you really like, you will fill in the location, the job beforehand. But even if you don't know already, you can still print the forms with that part blank and just fill that in on the day. Handwritten is very important, but it's not that important. And as someone who has a terrible handwriting, I'm not writing anything. So that's your business cards, your jet form. The next two things you're going to do is the Japanese version of your CV. So the Rireksho is your standard Japanese CV. There's a standard set format. You can buy it in any convenience store, Daiso, and anywhere. Again, I didn't write these at all. I'm not only a foreigner, so I get a bit of slack for that, but also my handwriting is terrible. And at the end of the day, they need to read this information, so I couldn't do that. I also didn't use the completely standard format. I actually had a friend from Tokyo mail me hers, and I liked the format a little bit better than the standard one. Try not to vary too much from what the standard form is. It is the standard form. Japan likes things in the standard way, obviously. The Rireksho also takes a photograph, so you can take that at any booth. There's a max value close to me, and I took my photos there. Try and scan one of these photos or take a photo of it, and then you can always put that on the digital copy of your rickshaw as well. If you're lazy, then you can just print the digital copy with the photo on it. I did that for my extra copies of packets, but I did actually put physical photos on the forms for the companies that I really liked. This is Japan, and the more you can kind of smooth out the wrinkles between your style and theirs, the better, especially at this stage in the conversation. The other part of the Japanese forms that you might fill out is the Shokumukei Rickshaw, which is your work experience CV. So the Rickshaw is very basic. If you don't have a lot of work experience, you can put down the company, the title, the industry, and stuff like that in the Rickshaw. But if you have some experience, and also even if you've only been on jet, I recommend you do the Shokumukei Rickshaw anyway, because you can write more details on there about what you did while you were on jet, what specifically were your responsibilities, what did you achieve, stuff like that. So look at that. You can find a few examples online, I'm sure. There is not a set format for this. Actually, for both of these, also what you can do is go to the career fair websites from 2019 or 2020 or whatever, because they have the information on there from presentations that they had at the events. And a lot of these presentations include a section about these two documents. So you can prepare it before you go and then sit during the presentation and go like, yep, I did all that. I feel like a boss. And not have to worry about, oh, I don't have the right format on the day that you go to the same career fairs booths. So yeah, just look for that stuff and get it. And then the last one, which I included, was my English CV. Just a short 2-page one. I printed everything one side only, which is, paper. But unfortunately, when you're talking to someone and they are looking at you and in your information, they want to put the pages next to each other so they can see everything at once. So it's best that you don't print on both sides of anything. You always print only one side in these situations. And then you go and plant 7 trees to say sorry. That will be your packet. I eventually bought some paper clips and just put each packet together and put a little tag on it because it was inside my folder or my little bag, so I could pull out the company that I wanted and hand it over. The other thing you want to do is get a notebook of some sort and a pen. So someone who has a notebook looks like they know what's going on, which is always good. You're gonna want to write some notes about the company, the job, the requirements of the job / how you think you might match it, and some questions. And then in the day while you're talking to the people sitting at their booth, hold out the notebook and you're going through the conversation with them because this is where your notes are, and then write the answers in the memos and similar. If there's someone who you can't get a meishi of, write their name down. It helps a lot that you don't have to keep everything in your head when you're visiting multiple booths. It also just looks more impressive. You have prepared, you have actual things that you've done, you have questions prepared to speak to them about, you've researched the company to some degree. And this notebook becomes very helpful later on if you have interviews as well, because especially at the start, you can't really look through your phone during the interview for the notes you made, or look on your computer because you might be using it for the interview, even if it's on Skype. So a notebook is incredibly helpful and creates a good impression. I highly, highly recommend it. Um, and yeah, I think that's the document kind of section set up. On the website for the career fair, there will be a list of exhibit whatever the word is, the list of the booths, the companies that will be coming to the fair. This keeps on filling up from 3 weeks before the fair till about 1 week before the fair. To my knowledge, they keep adding the newest company to the bottom, so you can just keep scrolling to the one that you saw last and check if there's anything after that. Please look through this before you get to the fair. I had a friend in Tokyo who spent the entire, like until like 4 o'clock or something the previous night looking through the information the night before. You're not doing yourself any favors. You're not sleeping very well. It's terrible. And another friend who said that, she only got to like letter X of the whole thing, so she doesn't know half the companies in the fair, unfortunately. And you're just not going to get the maximum amount of value out of your time if you don't look through these things beforehand. So use the time beforehand. Google Translate the information from every company. Eliminate the ones you don't like. Make a list of the ones you do like, that you might like. It becomes important later on that you know which ones you really care about and which ones you might kind of care about, but you're not sure. But I'll explain that again in a little bit. And then obviously, when you have figured out the list of companies you like, then you can look at their websites and write in your notebook a few details about it, your questions that you might have. Always have 2 questions for everyone. Just always have a question. If you don't have a question, then you don't really have any interest, because there's no way they've given you all the information yet. You always have to have some kind of question. Um, anyway, so look through those companies. I think about a week before the fair, it's done. There's no more changes to that. Um, then something else you can prepare is a little bit of self-introduction, Jiko Shokai, and some general questions and answers. So Japanese ability is a massive plus. I passed into December, so just before the career fair started. And although I actually didn't study anything more from when I wrote the exam to the fairs, knowing I passed gave me a huge confidence boost, and I smashed my way through many conversations. With a good preparation and a bit of sincerity, you can go a long way and doing a good impression, even if you do not have strong Japanese. But you need to practice these things a little bit. You don't have to parrot your answers if you don't want like that style, but you need to at least have an answer beforehand. Why did you come to Japan? Okay, well, great conversation. Sorry, man. Not a great impression. Um, Practice with someone else if possible. It's really cool. And just have some basic answers, just so that you don't get caught off with something really simple like, how long do you think you're going to stay in Japan? Or how did you study Japanese? Or something like that. I will also add a bunch of questions that I got asked and some of my friends got asked later in the video, so you can listen to that. And then you should be kind of okay. You have obviously got a few other things. You need a suit or some kind of, business acceptable attire. Women have a bit of more detail about makeup and hair and so forth, but in general, try and conform roughly to the standards, unless you have a very strong reason not to. At the Tokyo Fair, there was a girl who dressed very differently, very alternatively, and I personally thought it looked amazing, and I made a bit of an ass of myself in trying to just walk up to her and tell her I think this looks awesome. But I can only imagine that it might have been a bit difficult for her in some of the booths where, the more traditional or older people who may be at some of the booths were just not keen on what she was wearing. I'm guessing though, I'm not sure. But it is Japan, so you can make some assumptions about that. All right, prepare all your documents, put everything in, have a suit, have a what, have a bag. So this is a backpack. For those who are not sure, don't use a backpack. No one who does business wears a backpack in these situations anyway. Later on, obviously, it's very useful still, but it doesn't go well with a suit. And you want something that you can carry in your hand and ideally put down next to the chair. You can also find some more details about this. It relates to interviews as well, but basically have a thing that you can put some documents into. There is a cloakroom on the day, so you can put things away that you don't need. All right, that's 15 minutes in. I just got through preparation. This is very comprehensive. I'm so sorry. All right, so number 2, on the day. I think it's going to be a bit faster from here. Um, so needless to say, you're dressing well. You've got your black folder briefcase, something with your documents that you prepared and your notebook and whatever else you want to put in there. You arrive in Osaka. They asked us for our jet year or our jet number, but it turned out they just wanted to know what year we arrived because that's how they grouped our name tags. In Tokyo, they just went alphabetically. So anyway, you can find it without much fault. Put on your little name tag. There are extra jet forms, but you've already prepared, so you don't need to do that because we just spent 15 minutes talking about that. And then all of the fairs have some kind of cloakroom option where you can drop coats, extra bags, and so forth. So drop the stuff you don't need. You also at the start don't need all your documents. So you can also leave it there and just double check the access that you have, the timings it might be open or closed. Before the fair itself, I recommend that you maybe have brought like toiletries, like a toothbrush or something, mouthwash, just to clean up after lunch. Um, and then putting all the excess documents that you got during the presentations in the morning away, so that your bag isn't filled up and that you know exactly what's in there when you need it, and that it's just not so heavy and you don't have so much stuff in your hands. It's very difficult to balance multiple things in one hand and exchange meishi at the same time. You might, hurt yourself or something similar. Um, the career fair booklet, you also get that at this time. You get a booklet with a diagram of the booths, how they're going to be set up. Every company has a number or something similar, and every company's information basically about who they are, what kind of person they're looking for, what jobs they want to fill, basic work hours, who the main contact person is, contact information like a phone number and email, and general salary range. So on the JET form, you had to fill in basic salary or like a desired salary. Personally, I don't fill that in. Um, I I'm happy to discuss that once I understand what the job is, who the company is, and so forth. Because I believe in general that responsibility and salary should go at least roughly hand in hand. Um, I also don't want to limit myself by putting down a lower number and then applying to a very fancy company that might be able to pay me a lot more, but give me a bigger responsibility piece. I also don't want to put down a number and the business just goes, we can't afford this, sorry, bro. Um, there are many opinions about this. I asked the question during the career fair in Osaka as well, and the consultant said, it's okay, you can leave it out. So, my advice, leave it out and say you will discuss salary once they know if you might fit and you know what it is they're looking for and how you could fit into that. I don't think that should ever really be a problem. And if it is, then maybe the recruiter is a little bit not great. Um, all right, in this booklet, the last piece of information though is their basic salary guides. And then what I did obviously is before you don't have this information, so you've looked at what looks interesting, what looks great. Don't eliminate your choice just because you see that they pay you half what Jet does. Jet pays really well. You have to accept that there's a big chance your next job might not have the same financial benefits, but there are many other benefits that you don't have in your current job on Jet. It's not flexible, you don't have allowances for other things and so forth. So don't eliminate a company because of it. Instead, just look for a company that might sell or might have a large salary and you can also maybe have some interest in and note that down. It's not a bad idea to find extra companies to be interested in. Just don't cut ones out for no reason. And don't mess on yourself during break. All right. Number 3, the actual fair itself. All right, so clean your teeth, make sure you didn't mess on yourself, put away anything excess that you have in the cloakroom, and get your Meishu holder out. So you have your business cards, hopefully inside a business holder at this point, not just like in a packet or loose. And don't put it in your back pocket or anything, like put it in your breast pocket. It's supposed to be close to your heart, ideally. While you're talking to them, you can put the meishis on the table, either in the way people are seated or in hierarchy, top to bottom or something. It might help you talk to them as well because you can see their name right in front of you. And then when you leave, put them into your holder, put them in your breast pocket. You look like you are protecting them or keeping them close to your heart or something like that. The doors open, the fair is a go, you're in. Don't go to your first choice. You're full of adrenaline, you've got a million things circling your head. You've got how many booths that you want to get to. The booth people have also just set up. They're so excited to talk to people. Everyone is going to make probably their worst pitch and or engagement the first time, both them and you. Walk around the room, just the floor just once, maybe double checking where the booths are that you're keen to go. So this should take you like 3 minutes or something. And then go to one of your second choices, something that you're interested in but not that strongly. Make all your mistakes, Decimas, or whatever, I made a mistake, and get the adrenaline out of the way. And then you can start going to the ones you really care about. I can't stress this enough. Don't go make all those mistakes that you will make at your most favorite booth. Go make it somewhere else first and then go to the other ones. Um, Joining a presentation style booth is something I also don't really like very much. In Osaka, there was a presentation style booth that was very popular, and I actually came to this afterwards later on. I recommend, after you're so revved up to start talking to people, don't go sit down in a presentation. In Tokyo, there was also one company that I was very interested in, and I actually sat down and they were like, all right, cool, this is going to be a 30-minute presentation. 30 minutes out of the 4 hours I have to talk to how many companies out of 113. So I said, I'm sorry, I can't do this. And I stood up and I eventually came back at the end and said, here's my information. I did research you. I'm really sorry. I just couldn't spend the time. Um, I think that's a poor move on some companies' parts. Um, I don't think you should sit through large presentations if you can help it. You should have done the research beforehand and rather use this as FaceTime to speak to people, to introduce yourself, to ask questions, and so forth. If you do want to really go to a company that does have a presentation, maybe do it midway to at the end of your time so that you don't miss more engaging conversations first. And then waiting in line, obviously, if you wait in line, your time is ticking. You need to use your time effectively during a career fair. So maybe go to another booth first, come back, and then if it's still busy, maybe wait in line the second time. You'll see closer to the end of a fair, people who do not have a lot of people coming to the booth will start being a little bit more aggressive in their marketing. They're coming out into the general walkways, asking you to come in, giving you information and so forth. That's fine. Don't feel obligated to go and spend time at their booth if you don't want to. It's not your responsibility to make them feel good about their time there. They are there to market their company and their jobs, and you are there to speak to the people you want to while you can. So yeah, don't get stuck in a conversation you don't want to be in and then realize that you've wasted 5 minutes of the last 15 talking to a company you already knew you didn't want to work at. Okay. All right then. When you get to the booth, swap your meishes, introduce yourself. I personally like to open up with something about I did do some research and I have a few questions because I want to undercut the amount of information they want to give me. I did already do research and I didn't want to spend 10 minutes at every booth hearing their company's information. I'd rather want to have a conversation with the people at the booth about the things I found interesting, the kind of person that they're looking for, and so forth, how I might fit that or not. Um, it doesn't fit every booth. Some of them really want to give the information, but I think it helps that you try to engage in a conversation and also show that you did do research and effort beforehand. It can hopefully have a good impression and also hopefully limit the amount of time that you have to sit and take in information. I don't really think that is the primary goal in a career fair, or shouldn't be, for you to just sit and take in, because you could have taken in passively before the career fair, as I keep saying. Um, if you have your questions and things ready, then as they talk, you can kind of check, oh yeah, I get that. If they answer all your questions, you can just say, I had these questions, but you've answered it amazingly. If not, then please ask your questions later on as well. Don't go overboard, maybe one or two maximum is fine. And then before you get off from a booth, make sure you got the meishes from everyone. You gave them your packet, and that you confirm their general next step. Will they contact you? Should you apply again online? And so forth and so forth. It's just a good kind of I am interested, what's going to happen kind of thing. And also sometimes you want to know instead of being very unsure what's going to happen. It's a week later and no one has contacted anyone. Turns out this company only contacts people in March, but you didn't ask, so you don't know, and now you're stressing about it because it's only mid-February. All right. If you don't get to all the booths you want to go, you can technically contact them online and not even have been at the fair. There's a name, there's an email, and a phone number. You can mail them and say, I'm sorry, I never got to your booth. I got stuck in a presentation or something. Here's my information. I'm very interested in yada 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 and so forth. What I did instead was I went to all the booths I wanted to still get to but couldn't in the last 5 minutes. I was at every fair, and I just said, here's my information. I'm really sorry. I've run out of time, but I'm very interested. I made some research and some questions. Do you mind if I ask you online later and I will email you? They met me now, obviously, they got my information, and then I will reinforce the engagement with an email later on, like I'm going to do with everyone. If you have extra time, that's amazing. I still recommend you walk around a bit and see. You did make all the effort to come through, and you never know what companies might seem interesting, even though you didn't think so originally. Or just chat to other people, get some more experience chatting, introducing yourself, and similar. It's not bad. Alright, so now we are at number 4, I think, afterwards. So, number 4. You're tired, your throat hurts a little bit, you did a lot of speaking, you hopefully got to most of the booths, and well done. It's time to go home and rest, because the next day is your next step. The day after the career fair, I recommend sending an email to each company that you cared about. Japanese business emails is a world of unknown keigo I have never seen in my life. I've learned so much in this last while. Company name, like formal company name, division, and the nani nani sama, and then so on. Mail them. You can look up the format online. There's a lot of examples and neat little phrases you can use for saying that you're waiting for a response or you look forward to working with them or whatever. So match the Japanese culture as much as you can. In companies that are very multilingual, I wrote Japanese and English because my English is obviously much better and I could emphasize a few things more in the English section. In Japanese, in the first emails, I didn't want to take too many risks. And it was maybe a little bit bland, but the intention was there. If you can, try and give them a comment that will help them remember you. They might double check your name versus the information they have anyway, but it's easy if they can just remember. I was the guy wearing a purple hat, but don't wear a purple hat. Express your interest and you hope that your conversation will continue. And if you forgot anything you really wanted to say that you think will make you a good candidate, you can always add it into the email as a plus. And then, I look forward to hearing from you. And then with any luck, you'll start your conversations with a few companies and hopefully get into some Skype interviews. I myself is in Nagasaki. I live in Nagasaki, and so I had to travel for Osaka and Tokyo. And there are some companies who wanted to have me come through for an assessment already, an assessment center kind of event, or who said, we do interviews after a site visit, so please come visit us and then we interview you. Both of these offer a bit of a problem. It's expensive and time consuming to fly out to these places for a session or a visit when I don't have a lot of confidence yet that I suit what they want or that they have made any real starting decisions about me, because I think they offer these things to a multitude of people. Most companies, though, are very happy to interview you over Skype or something similar first and deal with physical visits if you get down the line. In Japan, you might go through 2 or 3 interviews, as far as I understand as well. I'm in the middle of this now, so I'm learning as I go. But normally you kind of go here, and then you talk to someone a bit higher, and then maybe a third interview with like the president or someone. All right, and then I think that's it. So number 5 was interviews. I'll just briefly say that notebook you had, mine is still incredibly useful. Now that I've gone through 2 career fairs, I have an interview with a company from the first career fair. I still have my notes, the questions, and their answers. It helps a lot. I kept all the paperwork from all the career fairs for now, and so if there's a company that I need to look up, I can find what their little leaflet was. I can look again online. I still have the books. I can look through the booklets with the company's information as well. Just keep all of that around until this process is over. Finding a job is potentially easy, potentially not easy, and it's probably best that you just keep all your tools with you until you're finished. Research the companies a bit before you go through an interview. Some of the questions that I might ask will be outside of what you would know just from the booklet. For instance, one of the companies would ask, do you know who our competitors are? Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but it's probably best that you have done some research. And then, for instance, in my case, I said, I'm sorry, I didn't re-look at that because this is now the second interview, and I unfortunately don't remember the names, but blah 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 blah. Showing that I did do research and I do understand the general competitive nature of the industry and whatever, whatever. Um, Look for people on LinkedIn before you interview them. There's nothing wrong with that. You get a feel of who they might be. You might see their face, and then if there's two people on the screen, then you kind of at least know which one is which one by process of elimination. Um, and then there's no shame or negativity in accepting an interview to figure out if you have a real interest in the company. I can interview with ABC, whatever. I don't really know if I'm that interested in it. Go for it anyway. It's good experience, and as they figure out if they might want to hire you, you can have a chance to figure out if you actually have an interest in the company or not. All right, so that's about 30 minutes now. I have two more points left. So, six is frequently asked questions, and seven is example questions. Frequently asked questions. Are the career fairs worth it? I am incredibly impressed with the career fairs. I am 32, I'm a mid career hire. I'm not a fresh grad by any definition anymore. And I found it incredibly useful. But if you're not going to stay in Japan or potentially look to move back to America, then I don't think it will be useful for you. So if you're looking to go back to South Africa, for instance, then there's very little relevant there because all of the information you receive is about Japanese customs and culture and businesses and so forth. Print versus written, I've already mentioned this before. Written is totally fine. Print, in my case, is just a disaster. Um, it could be that extra, you did so much effort, but no one really expects it. And you risk, well, making mistakes, I think, by doing that. Oh, I made a mistake. I can't white out. I have to rewrite the whole form. Oh, that kanji wasn't perfect. Now it looks ugly. I actually just don't think you should write it at all. Photos, yes, I think you should take some photos at a booth. It's a little bit expensive, but what I found actually as well, and this was not my find, I got told this, you can take one set of photos at a booth, so you have, I think, eight, and then you can go to a convenience store and photocopy that onto photo paper, and the size might shift a tiny bit, but you can always cut it to be roughly the same size again. And so you can just make a few photocopies on photo paper at a convenience store and save yourself the time and money of doing more photo booth photos. Um, Wanted salary, I've already mentioned that as well. I think it's fine to say nothing. You know what you make as Jet, and you can always say that if they insist on asking. But I would say that I think that salary is a good conversation to have after you know if you want to hire me, and I understand what the job is you want to hire me for. Because saying I want to have $1 billion and then they tell me they want me to look after their kid for like half a morning, unless they're really rich, it doesn't really relate. But if they tell me that I have to look after all their kids the entire month, then it's starting to sound a bit more troublesome, so I could understand that. Um, what else is there? Go to more than one fair. So I went to Osaka and to Tokyo. Highly recommended. I will also go to Fukuoka, and I've started to see a big chunk of the companies are repeating. So I can see some benefit and some negative. The starting sessions, the presentations before the event are a little bit different for every fair, but there's also a lot of similarities. Finding employment in Japan, basic culture, stuff like that, and then something different. So in Fukuoka, they've got a business Japanese to help you find a job in Japan session, and then they've got mock interviews, which they didn't have in Osaka or in Tokyo. So that sounds awesome. I'd love to have some more experience in practicing my Japanese, having someone tell me, yeah, that's terrible, please fix it in this way. Because, I don't know, me in the mirror doesn't really correct much. Entry level jobs only? No, as I said, so I'm a mid career hire. I found one company that specifically said management experience. In general, also, the company might have something aimed at fresh graduates because they might expect that many people coming out of the JET program are straight after university JETs, which I think is the general case. But many of us aren't. And also, the company might have that focus, but then when they meet you, they'll be like, yeah, we have other positions as well. We just didn't advertise them because we didn't expect someone to be here or something. So, no, I don't think it's only entry level. And then what is business Japanese? So on the form, on the internet, in the booklet, and on the JET form, there are levels of Japanese capability. It's in Japan, it's relevant for most jobs. There's native, business, conversational, basic. I've forgotten. I think actually it just goes native, business, conversational, and nothing required. So I'm not native. I did pass in two. Now that I have passed in two, I know that N2 has nothing to do with being business proficient in Japanese, unfortunately. But in the same way that that company can't really say, yeah, I just have no experience or no capability. You don't have to have perfect into perfect N1, perfect business Japanese to tick the business Japanese box. Conversational, basic daily conversational level means that you can get by a little bit generally. In my experience so far, business level is a bit more that you understand general keigo versus casual. You can do a few masses and deses at the right place, keredomo and place kara, whatever, and you can find some versions of the language that are slightly more formal. It does not mean that you have to be brutally honest on business Japanese level, because that is, frankly speaking, a bit of a hard ask for many of the jets who go to these things. Although there are others who just, it flows like melted butter. They speak so well. Yeah, and then example questions. So this is now number 7. We are at 36 minutes. So let's make this 40 minutes and then we're done. Example questions we've got asked so far. So where are you from? Please introduce yourself, and then you have to talk about yourself a little bit and a little bit of experience that might be related, and you're interested, and stop. And when you stop, just stop. You don't have to fill the space after the question, by the way. Why did you come to Japan? Why did you come on the JET program? What did you do before? If you have some work experience, they might ask you, why did you change jobs? Are you okay to relocate from where you are to where we might want you to be? How long are you intending to stay in Japan? Or have you thought about your future in Japan, about when you'll be going back? There's this assumption that everyone will be going back at some point. So just have some kind of answer about, I want to be here longer term and so forth. I think businesses obviously would like a longer term employee. Many of the companies also asked, would you be willing to go overseas in the future? So for instance, if they want to expand their business, will you go help expand the business in another country, being the English speaker? How did you study Japanese? And I realized that jigaku is related to students only, and I actually did dokugaku, which is just self-study but not for a student, unless I'm wrong. Have you had any troubles adjusting to life in Japan? What do you know about our company? Do you know who our competitors are? Do you know what services we provide? How do you think you can add value at our company? Why did you pick this company, as opposed to the other companies around? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What aspects of Japanese culture do you think are appealing to foreigners or are difficult for foreigners? The list goes on, but it's better that you think about more questions rather than fewer and have an answer, even if your answer is only in English. This doesn't make a good impression. You need to have an answer, even if you can't deliver it in fluent Japanese. At least it shows that you've thought about the situation, that you know that this is something they might need to know about you, and that you have prepared some way to answer them. Preparation goes a long way, which is why, of the 40 minutes, 15 of it was just the preparation section. And I think with that, we're good to go. Yeah, this was very comprehensive. I haven't actually made this long a video in a very long time. In the short of it, do your preparation properly. If you're in my situation, I really want to stay, and so finding a job in Japan is important to me. Having this one chance now with all these fairs and all these companies is important to me, and I have done all this work so that I have the best chance to find a job I want, instead of just finding a job and then not liking my situation in Japan. It's helped me a lot as well to go to the career fairs, because I did recruiters last year, and the options were very limited and very specific almost. I didn't really get a large range of companies that were willing to talk to me, or the recruiter wasn't willing to offer me to a large range of companies. So between the two, I would say Jet career fairs are incredibly valuable if you are just looking for a job in Japan in general. Recruiting companies can only offer you certain jobs, they only have access to certain ones as well. So, all the best, and hopefully, we can find some future in Japan. Ciao.